is not with us right now, so I'm going to start up our lesson, and hopefully she will be able to join here in a little bit. So today we are going to be talking to you all about activism and arts activism. So this is, the different ways that people go about to make their voices heard and try and bring about social or political or some type of change. And so just kind of get started, get you all thinking about activism. I have some questions that we're gonna kind of talk through, and then if you all just want to come up, you can discuss with a partner, discuss with anyone close by, and then come up and share your answers with me, and then we'll get started on the actual lesson. So first of all, what are some current activist topics or groups that you know about in the United States? This could be something from the past and the present, something where an activist a group has come together to protest or to talk about something and try and bring about some change. Can you think of any examples?
Black Lives Matter.
Exactly, yes.
Like the LGBTQ community.
Okay, good. Yep, they have a lot of activism going on. Any other?
Trump supporters.
Okay, yep, that's a political.
Women's rights.
Women's rights, there you go. So like the Women's March would be an example, a specific example of activism surrounding women's rights. Good. Anything else? Okay, those are all really good ones. So what about social media or TV, or maybe some other types of activism? So like we just brought up the march. What are some other things that people go out and do or get together to display activism?
Activism beyond the United States. Oh, things like the wall for Donald Trump.
Okay, yeah. Brexit. Okay, yeah. So these are all things, that you've seen through the media, seen through the TV, that people are either in support of or trying to fight against. So they might be protests or rallies, or posts on social media can count as activism as well. Yeah, so good. And then last, this little question just to see, have any of you ever attended a protest or a rally? Raise your hand. Which one? If you want to share, feel free to.
She said Women's March.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, and so these are things that, we see a lot. We see through the media. We see we can be active participants as well. And this is all part of activism. It's, like I said before, getting your voice heard and trying to bring out a change one way or another. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you all. Let me get my PowerPoint up about activism in Italy. Let me see. Okay. If I can share my screen. Okay, activism in Italy. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through a couple different areas of activism in Italy and give you a little bit of background information, and then the various forms and different things that people in Italy do. So kind of just to give a little bit of background information and just what makes activism in Italy interesting, in my opinion. has to do with kind of the way the country is set up and a problem that they faced for a long time now in their history. So Italy, in my opinion, is a beautiful country, but it definitely has its issues. And one of these big issues is corruption. And this corruption takes place in different forms. There's the mafia, nepotism, all these things. And unfortunately, this corruption, it holds influence over citizens, over people in Italy, and that can have some effects on their ability or how much activism they choose to partake in. So, for example, kind of to delve a little bit deeper into this, explain myself a little bit more. So, for the mafia, so as you all might remember from some of my past presentations, the mafia, while it's often stereotyped a little bit, it does exist in Italy, and it is a large part of the corruption that goes on in the country, specifically in the South, in this case. And so there have definitely been increased anti-mafia movements in the past 20 years, which is obviously a good thing. And that's activism in and of itself. If you look at it as people speaking out and taking action against the mafia, that is activism. However, like I said before, it's something that holds influence over people and places. And so specifically in the South, maybe in the smaller towns where everyone knows everyone, people are hesitant to speak their mind and be activists in some areas because the mafia does have control over, their livelihood or maybe their jobs or something like that. And kind of going along with this, there's also nepotism is kind of is a big issue in Italy. I don't know if you all know what nepotism is. It's when people who are in power, so people that have a higher up job, whether it's in government or within a big company or something, they have power and they have the power to give jobs and everything else. And so they favor their relatives or their friends. And this is kind of it's a part of what the mafia does as well, but also it's larger than just the mafia in Italy. My Italian host sister, she's a really smart student, loves school, loves to study, but when it came time for her to decide what she wanted to do, she was always really negative about getting into kind of the equivalent of what law school is over there in Italy. And this was because you have to have connections over there in order to get into a school or get a certain job. And so these are all these big parts of corruption. And it's frustrating, I believe, for Italians. A lot of Italians want certain social or political change, and they definitely do use activism, but to try and achieve this. But a lot of their efforts are pushed down or muffled a little bit due to kind of some of this background corruption. And so this is just something that I think is interesting to keep in mind, and something to keep in mind that, could affect activism in certain countries and certain areas. And also just looking at the different cultural kind of parts that can go into activism. But with this kind of background information, just because there is corruption in Italy and that it kind of changes a little bit that arena of activism, that doesn't mean that by any means that it shuts down activism. So now I'm going to kind of go into a couple common outlets for activism in Italy. And these are also things that I've seen or experienced myself while I've been in Italy. And so it's kind of cool to truly see or be a part of the activism that's taking place. So, okay. So a big form of activism in Italy are the scioperi, or strikes, is what that means in Italian. Strikes are very common in Italy in order for certain groups of people to make their voices heard. One of the big types of strikes are transportation strikes. And so this is where, this is when, public transportation is a big part of a lot of European countries, and specifically in Italy. If you live in a big city or the surrounding areas, a lot of people rely on public transportation to get from one place to the other. So they rely on it to get to their job every morning and come home or get to the store. Whether this is buses or trains or any taxis even. Um, and so when there's a transportation strike, no one in the transportation sector comes to work. Sometimes this is just for a day. Other times they do really lengthy strikes. So it could be even longer. And something interesting about transportation strikes is the strikers have a website that warns people. They go ahead and plan their strikes in advance. And so you can actually go onto this website and look up a day and a time or the area, the region that you are in the country, and see if there's going to be a strike or not. I always kind of found that funny. You're kind of warning people of what you're about to do. So it seems like it would sort of take away a little bit of the point of getting their voices heard and getting their point across. But when you're living in Italy, it comes in handy. One time I was going to take a day trip to a little town outside of Bologna, and my roommates had heard that there might be strikes coming to the area soon. And so they told me to look it up on the website, and I went, and had I gone, then I probably would have gotten stranded in that little town. So yeah, that's just kind of one way that, again, is very common for certain groups of people to get their voices heard. They're trying to show to people, you all rely on us on a daily basis, and so we want higher wages or we want better benefits. And these are the things that they're taking that they're using this form of activism to try and argue or to try and get their point across and bring about change. And then another form that is very common is rallies. And so kind of rallies and marches, which, as we were talking about, you guys brought up at the beginning of the class, talking about women's marches and all the marches that have been going on recently in the United States. This is a form of activism that I had never really seen in the United States. And then when I went to Italy for the first time, it seemed like they were really common there. And now I would say they're becoming more common in the US as well. But it was something that I really saw for the first time in Italy. And so a lot of these rallies, they're for a certain cause. So a big one in Italy is refugees' rights. This picture in the middle is from a rally in Bologna, in the city that I was studying in, and they're rallying for refugees' rights. There's a lot of refugees that arrive in Italy from African countries. As I've talked about, they arrive through the south and then kind of typically make their way up through the country. And it's a huge political point of contestment. The refugees are largely discriminated against, but then there are groups that, want to make them feel welcome and want to fight for their equal rights. And so this is where kind of a lot of activism comes in, and marches are planned very often, especially in the bigger cities. And in Bologna, for one, I know I saw at least probably 2 different refugee marches while I was there, because it's a university city, so it's a lot of young people that are getting out and being very active. And there's always a bunch of signs carried and often some chants. And this is, again, like I said before, activism to get their voices heard and argue for the equality of refugees. And same goes for women's rights. There's also been a lot of women's rallies and marches. Italy it's a progressive country, but it's still largely a patriarchal society. So, historically, men have always been the most powerful. And this is something that a lot of women and men in Italy are trying to change and trying to empower women. And they do this through rallies and marches. And so now, kind of going into a little bit of a different realm of activism, I'm going to talk to you all about street art. So street art is kind of a big, it's becoming, especially in Italy, a growing arena for activism, specifically in certain areas. But it's, I mean, another word for it, I guess, is graffiti, but it's often has some type of political or social message that is trying to be portrayed and for, for anyone walking on the streets to see. And so these are some pictures of political street art, which has definitely has a pretty big presence in Italy, specifically in Bologna. And these three are three examples of anti-Berlusconi street art, which is very common. So Berlusconi was the prime minister of Italy for a while, and he's a very controversial political figure. And, these pieces of street art show how the Italian people are feeling. It says Berlusconi game over, saying, he's going to be out of there soon, wanted. Please turn off this TV, with a bunch of Berlusconi. Berlusconi was had a big TV presence before he became a politician. So these are some examples, just a few examples of political street art that you can find in Italy. And then even more than just only politicians, there's more street art. So now I'm going to talk to you about one of the biggest Italian street artists, and his name is Blu. Blu was born in a small town, but he actually lives in Bologna now, and is probably, I would say, the most famous Italian street artist. He's created a big name for himself in Italy. He also has works in other areas of the world. He went on a group with a couple of their, kind of like a tour with a couple of their street artists through Central and South America, so has work all in big cities all throughout there. Blu isn't his real name, by the way. It's kind of his street art name, and he keeps his identity anonymous. But he tends to work in bigger cities and kind of in the industrial areas of town. He likes big murals, so typically he'll take up an entire wall of however many story building. And he has a big following, especially in Bologna. When I first moved there and was kind of exploring the city with my roommates, they took me around and pointed out all the pieces of Blu's street art, because a lot of them have either political or social messages. He takes some political stances. He also speaks out about corruption and other structures and social Italian issues. And so it's just kind of cool that he's such a big presence especially in one city. And then this picture, I included this picture because this is one of his biggest murals. This is just the kind of the bottom edge of it. It's probably a 10-story building, and the mural covered the entire thing. And it's kind of was based around, speaking out against the chaos and corruption of Italy. But then Bologna, and it was in Bologna, the city of Bologna decided to do a street art exhibition. And so they were taking not only pictures and putting them in a gallery of the street art, but then also having them on stops along kind of a tour that you could take. And a lot of Blu's pieces were a part of this tour. But this kind of went against what he thought of as the point of street art, kind of I guess, kind of day-to-day activism that just comes with walking by a piece of street art and looking at it and seeing what, the meanings that are behind it. He didn't like that it was becoming a part of this organized exhibition. And so he actually went back and destroyed and covered up, I think, almost 50 pieces of his own street art. This particular piece, he scraped all the paint off. Some of them he, spray painted over and things like that. And so this actually happened. I saw this mural in 2015, and then it was in 2016 when he destroyed it. And so when I heard about this and heard about him, ruining, in a sense, of his own art, it's his own certain type of protest against what the city of Bologna was doing. So in a way, he's using this new form of activism, this destruction of his own work, to make a point about the original work in and of itself. So it's this kind of very interesting idea around activism and how it's portrayed in cities, and specifically, as I said, street art. And so that's kind of all I have for Italy. And now I'm going to pass it over to Sean, and she is going to talk to you all about activism in England.
One person or group, but I'm focusing on England this week instead of China. And I'm going to start off with the question, has anyone heard of Banksy, or this idea of person or work of Banksy? If you have, can you raise your hand? Let's see if I can see. Kind of. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So if you have not, there's some pictures. There's two of his or there. Emma, if you can just hit the next button of his or their work. This person along like blue is anonymous, and it could be a person, a group, a he, a she, a they, I have no idea. And that's kind of what makes it interesting of their work. But if you've seen these two pieces, I think they're probably one of the most well-seen pieces throughout the world. Yeah, so along with what Emma was talking about earlier about street art and how it's a great way to perform activism through art, and a very easy way to the public, easy access to the public. But pretty much Banksy, if you go to the next slide, I'll give you a quick bio. Banksy, people think he or they were originated in Bristol, England around the 1990s. So I'm going to refer to Banksy as they. They started doing street work around just that city area in the 1990s, and then started to expand out throughout the whole United Kingdom, and then eventually the world in the 2000s. And they have been in places, big cities, especially, such as Paris, LA, Barcelona, New York City, because those are like very populated cities, very popular cities to get the word out. And so if you can see that little picture in the bottom right, that was found in London. And you can tell kind of that their work is very politically charged, very kind of rebellious, controversial at times as well. So I encourage you, as you look at these next like pictures and artworks that they have presented, to be kind of critically thinking about what they are trying to send off as a message, and if you agree or disagree with them. But this picture or this street art is of a little boy making the English flag or the UK flag using like a little wheel thing. And so I kind of want to ask the question, what do y'all think this message or what they're trying to portray? So if you can just turn to a partner real quick, and when you have an answer or come to kind of an idea to share it. So just within like the next 30 seconds or so. And you can come up to the mic and say your answer or what you think it means. Because it is artwork and it could be seen in different ways and like interpreted in different senses. So just wanted to like have a discussion about it. If anyone has any ideas?
I think that it might mean like they're remaking England or the UK.
Yeah, that's a really, I haven't thought about that, but that could be definitely something that they're trying to say. Anyone else? It's fine if you don't, but I'll give you kind of like what I think it kind of is portraying is the like in UK history, there has been a lot of like child labor being done, and so I think it might be portraying like England is working on the backs of like children labor and such. But again, this is like a piece of art that could be interpreted in different ways. But continuing on, he is able to make all these pieces of art, street art, really fast and very efficiently through stencil and spray paint. So, and that also helps what keeps Banksy anonymous because they're able to quickly put this on walls or on inside buildings and such without getting noticed because it's a very easy process. You can go to the next slide, please. So what kind of brought them to the limelight for the world to see? It started off with these street arts in 2005 on the West Bank between Israel and Palestine. And you can see within these pictures that there is definitely a political and like message kind of being shown. You can see like the dove, which typically I think represents freedom, being targeted. So that can be up to your own understanding and thoughts. And the other one is a picture of a little girl, I think patting down like a soldier, which might be like a reversed role happening. But yeah, so you can tell that these works of arts have been very, very politically charged and kind of very controversial. And Banksy has been getting a lot over the years, a lot of praise, but also a lot of criticism, which does come with activism work. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So, and then with that, he has had some, or they have had some exhibitions throughout the past years. The first one to the left with the bridge in it is called, I forgot what it was called, and I can't really see it on my slide, but I hope you can see it down there. But it was presented in an exposition in London. And I don't know if y'all have seen this art before, but it's actually Monet's water lily, kind of like Monet's work, and Banksy has added their own twist to it. So that can be very controversial because that does lead to problems of copyright, as well as, yeah, just like infringing on other artists' work. So that's up to your own idea if you think that is morally correct, ethically questionable. But on the other picture of the elephant, that is another big statement. That is actually a real elephant that was presented in an exposition in LA. And that elephant is painted with like the wall ceiling or the walls kind of pattern. And apparently there's notes around for the viewers or people to see that said, there's an elephant in the room, and it was 20 billion people live under the poverty line. So that was definitely kind of the message that Banksy was trying to send out. But as soon as this was shown, there was a lot of pushback on having a real elephant being painted like that, and animal activists were very upset. And so with these two paintings, I was wondering if you all can discuss what your thoughts on it. Do you think it's going a little too far? Or do you think it's making the right message? Do you disagree with the message? What do you think the message is? You can pick either painting or can discuss what you think about it, if you agree or disagree with it. We could talk with a partner. And then when you're ready, if you can come up and we can try to discuss what you think about it.
I don't think they should use the real elephant. Like they could have used a fake elephant.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Said they should have used a fake elephant instead of a real elephant.
Yeah, that was definitely a very controversial topic. The fact that he used, or they used, a real elephant to portray and send out a message like that. Is there any other views that people think the elephant was definitely like the perfect way to get people's attention? Or is it just a general agreement that it was kind of a little too far to use a real elephant? Yeah, I kind of would agree with that, because it comes down to like the elephant had no say in if it wanted to do this or not. But yeah, so quickly after this was shown, animal activists definitely pushed back, and the elephant was taken out of the exhibit. How about any thoughts on the one of the Monet picture? If you think it was a clever idea that Banksy used an old painting that was popular and added their own twist to it, or was it kind of infringing on copyright? Just any ideas on that?
Because it was cool how it's a nice thing, and then there's just like stuff you want, I guess. I mean, so, yeah, it's something different that you don't normally see in a picture.
I didn't get any of that. I'm so sorry. Can you repeat that again?
Okay. I like how it was a nice setting, and then you just see the stuff in the water. So it's like something you don't normally see, like in that type of setting.
Yeah. What do you think it was trying to portray, or the message that it was sending out?
I don't know. Like, I guess that like you put anything in there, like you can make something so beautiful be so nasty.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of ways to interpret that picture. Could be like a global warming kind of protest, or just like a twist on old art. But yeah, there's a lot of different ideas going into both of these. And most of Banksy's works does have a lot of problems that go into it. But can you go to the next slide, please? Okay. So Banksy has gotten popular over the years, and even more, he or they. I think Banksy is a he. That's what most people and most sources on the web has determined to be, but no one can be for sure. But Banksy has come out with a documentary in 2010, and it was actually up for Academy Award. But the documentary is called Exit Through the Gift Shop, and it kind of focuses on the relationship between street art and the capitalism kind of society and marketing. And this is the trailer to it. We can just watch the first bit for a little bit, but I would highly recommend maybe checking it out if you're more interested in Banksy. Saw kind of some of Banksy's works throughout the world. And this documentary just takes you through kind of what Banksy's thoughts on for how street art has evolved and how it's been commercialized. And so that was a documentary that Banksy made himself. And then what he's up to now, if you can go to the next slide. He has actually built a hotel. And this hotel is located where that 2005 wall between Palestine and Israel is. And there is a lot of political message behind this as well. So this is another video kind of giving you an idea of what the wall is and the message behind it. It's called the Walled Off Hotel.
Now if you know West Bank.
Yeah, so that was kind of showed you a different way that Banksy was able to express his political views and a message, and he built a hotel with it. So I thought that was very interesting and just kind of up to date for what he's doing now. And yeah, throughout the years that he's gotten a lot of media and a lot of support, he has also gotten a lot of money because of his works. His art pieces have been up for millions and millions of dollars. And so he has used that money, I guess, into showing art and activism in different ways, and that included building a hotel. But yeah, so that's kind of what he is up to now. And I would keep an eye out for what there is in the future for Banksy and what other political commentary or just social commentary this street art is just going to do. So now we're going to go into kind of reflecting on what we learned today. You could go to the next slide, please. Ooh, yeah, there we go. Discussion questions. Here's some questions. If you can find a partner to discuss the first one, which is how is arts activism similar or different in Italy and England versus the US, if you see any similarities or differences that we've talked about. And then how about let's just like give you a little bit of time for that first question, then we'll go on to the second and third. And then Emma and I can chime in with what we think as well. But this is just a discussion between you all and us and overall. And make sure to speak kind of clearly into the mic because we've had some trouble with listening or hearing.
A difference in Italy and England versus in the US is that they protest mostly about art, and in the US it's mostly like some of them are like violence and physical and another thing is like the things that we're protesting against are different. Like over here, but they're kind of in a way the same. Basically, for human rights stuff. Over here, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and then over there, they're talking about how Israel should be able to enter the other side.
Thank you for sharing. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Emma, if you have anything to say, please chime in. Or
yeah, I think that's kind of there's an overall commentary on the different things that activism revolves around is going to vary by country. So in the U.S., Black Lives Matter is a huge activist, arena right now, and that's a problem that that we're working on affronting or confronting here in the US that, they don't necessarily have the same issue in Italy or England. And so they have their other issues. So like the anti-mafia activism is something that's going to be pretty particular to Italy. And so, yeah, there's definitely going to be differences around what these activism, these topics of activism are going to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And with England, it is a bit more similar kind of in culture and societal setup as America. And so you do see some of America's like activism work being translated also into England. So Black Lives Matter is also prominent over there, as well as like the Women's March and the Women's Moral March, kind of all those works as well. And they've also had some political changing with, I'm not sure if y'all heard of what happened last summer with pulling out of the EU, and that caused a lot of social unrest and like population kind of is divided as well with that. So there are some similarities as well with, you see Banksy's work being translated all over the world, as you see America's work as well being influential all over the world. Good, yeah. So the next question, what type of activism or reason for activism of the ones mentioned would you be most interested in participating in, and why? I know I kind of just stuck to street art, but I know Emma touched on other things, and you can think of other ones that weren't mentioned as well.
Yeah.
I think I would want to do the, it's just sculpture, I think.
Shokpari? Yes.
That, because it seems very interesting to participate in, like, if I were able to get a job and stuff like that. That would be something that I would be interested in.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'd be interesting. You're really taking a big action by kind of making a big impact by not showing up to work.
A type of activism I would participate in would be the street art, because I like to draw, and it seems like it's basic. You can get arrested if you're not caught, but then why you protesting?
Yeah, that's definitely a risk one takes. There has been a lot of like, for Banksy, like there's been a lot of like police and just governmental kind of awareness, and that's why he is anonymous, and that's why like other street artists who this kind of, yeah. Thank you for sharing. And then finally, well, I can't see, right?
You gonna do the next question, Emma?
Okay, yeah. Okay, last question. What artistic skills do you have that you might be able to use for activism? So
Yeah, and this was, yeah.
I know someone just said they're good at drawing. What else could you use?
For activism, you can write poetry.
Poetry. Yeah, slam poetry has been definitely very popular and very effective. Anything else? Art is a very, so there's like nothing new for art.
Oh, can you hear us?
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, there you
Oh, some of us like to sing, so you can make songs.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's
like me through music. I think we've been seeing some like this these days have gone against a lot of.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit, Sean.
we might have. Are you there, Sean?
Can you hear me?
I think we might have lost
Yeah.
her, so maybe.
Yeah.
And,
All right. Yeah. Songs.
Emma.
Music would be an awesome way for activism. There's so many different skills, whether they're artistic or otherwise, that you can use to be an activist. You know, if you're good at speaking in front of crowds, you could be the leader of a march, or you can just be a participant in a march. Like you all said, music, drawing, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of things. I'm sure you all have skills that you can use to be activists. And so yeah, just to kind of close up, I hope you all enjoyed our kind of different lessons. I know a lot of it focused on street art, but hopefully you all got to see that, you know, activism, it's a really important part of our society if you want to bring about change, do something about it, be an activist. And there's, like I said, multiple ways to do it, multiple topics that can be covered, and efforts that can be achieved. And it does change country by country, but there's a lot of similarities throughout it all. And that is especially, people trying to get their voices heard and make a difference. So I hope you all, again, enjoyed our lesson, and we will see you all for our last lesson in a few weeks, I believe.
I think it's maybe April 21st, somewhere around end of April.
Okay, so about a month.
Yeah. Any quick questions or?
No question. Have you what forms of activism, or if you have, what forms of activism have you taken part in?
Yeah, so I I was talking about how in Italy, marches are very common. And so I popped in on 2 different marches. One was a refugee rights march, and the other one was just kind of a general political. There was a lot of political protesting going on while I was over there, and so was a part of that. And then those are kind of the big, as far as the marches and the big outlets. But then, anything from things that I'm, passionate about. So like studying abroad and getting out there, just making my voice heard on campus at UNC. There's always lots of room for activism. So going out and speaking to people. And I would say those are probably the biggest forms of activism that I've been a part of. Oh, there's Sean. I'm going to ask the same. Can you hear us, Sean? No. I think she's frozen again.
Any other questions? Maybe one more.
There's no more questions. No questions.
No more questions. All right. Well, thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Adios.